everybody, and welcome to day 2. That will be your mission number 2 of Unit 1A video lesson that you're going to take notes of. So, today's video is about classifying and ordering real numbers. So we're gonna pretty much focus on absolute value. We'll compare absolute value and some integers and see how the absolute value sign works. And also we are going to mention the practice assignment you're going to do after your notes are completed. So practice assignment will be 2.1 practice B worksheet. All the worksheets will be provided for you if you need hard copy, or you can find the worksheet attached under Schoology, the same level folder. When you look, you will see the worksheet as an attachment file. So, what is absolute value? Well, first of all, absolute value is any number that have those straight lines around. The straight lines are not calling just parentheses or something like that. They actually call the absolute value. And absolute value is the distance from 0, no matter in which direction you're going, to the negative or to the positives. So for example, if I have 0 here, and I have, in this case, absolute value of -8, that means your absolute value goes to the left 8 points and to the right 8 points. Absolute value is always positive number, so you're not looking at the number itself positive or negative. You just count how many points this number moves to the left or to the right. So absolute value of any number, positive or negative, inside those two straight lines, vertical lines, it's always equal to a positive value, which is 8 in this case. Absolute value of 4 again will be positive 4. What happened when we have negative sign outside of the absolute value? In this case, we always keep the negative sign. Negative sign is not part of the absolute value number. So you have to copy the negative sign, and then you're saying that this number is 9, because the absolute value of 9 is 9. There is another example when we have absolute value of -32. Negative sign is inside the absolute value symbol, which means this whole thing, it will be positive number, equals 32. Right here, hopefully you can see well, this is an absolute value. So we have negative sign outside of the absolute value, which I'm going to write down, and then we have absolute value number of -7. But the absolute value of any number is always at positive value. So negative sign comes from the outside one, and this is just 17. So the answer here will be -17. Those are pretty much all the cases that you may see with positive or negative numbers. So keep in mind, if you have a negative sign outside of the absolute value symbols, you have to keep that negative sign. Inside the absolute value, no matter what number is, you always write down the positive value of that number. Now, if we have given, as an example 1, couple absolute values and we have to compare the values of those numbers, first thing, you would like to convert those to what they're equal to. So absolute value of 4 is 4. Then we're going to put this line, we'll make some space for inequality symbol, and absolute value of -4 is also positive 4. So in this case, 4 and 4 are two numbers equal to each other. Let's take a look at this next example. Those are brackets or parentheses, so they're not absolute value. Another thing to be aware of is this is what we call parentheses, this is what we call absolute value. Those two symbols are not the same, and we can't make this equal to a positive right away just because it's not absolute value symbol. So here's what we're gonna do. With the parentheses, we can combine those two signs. When we combine those two, they change to plus sign. So I have just 7 on the left side. Draw a line. And then we have negative of absolute value of -6. So the negative sign is outside the absolute value, and I will keep that sign. And absolute value of -6 itself is just 6. So now I need to compare two numbers, 7 and -6. Well, obviously 7 is greater than -6. We have another case here. Negative absolute value of 8 and then negative of -8. So negative absolute value of 8, again negative sign is in front, absolute value of 8 is just 8, and we have negative of -8, those are parentheses, so we can combine those two negatives, they change to plus, and I put number 8 here. Which one of -8 and 8 is the larger number? Well, +8 is larger than -8. Alright, so I would say at this point, for sure, make sure you pause the video. I'm sorry. I'm recording those videos in the building, and sometimes we have some announcements. So anyway, please pause the video and wait for me. I'm gonna move on to the other example, but once you pause the video, you want to finish all of those notes. If you have any questions, use on the site, you know, this open space on the site, and just write down your questions so you will remember what to ask me, or just put the question mark or something by the example so I can help you when we're doing practice time. Alright, so if you're ready, go ahead and take a look of this other example. We have plot the following numbers on the number line. So in previous lesson we talked about how to classify or order in the right place all real numbers like integers or positive, negatives. In this case we have a variety or mix of. So first let's equal those. What are they equal to? So if I have negative number of absolute value of 6, this will be equal to, and again the negative number is outside of the absolute value, so I would just put negative here, and this absolute value of 6 is 6, so this will be equal to -6. Right here, nothing to work with, -8 is just -8, and in this case the two negative signs, they combine, we get positive, and that will be equal to +5. So now I need to put in order -6, -8, and 5. And I'm going to choose this location for +5, this one for -6, and this one for -8. With that, the example is completed. Okay, I'm moving forward to the next example. In the next one, it says order from least to greatest. Well, in order to do that, again, we want to simplify, convert those to their equal final number, and then we will order. So -34 stays the same. -34 is equal to -34. Absolute value of -16, this whole thing is just 16. Absolute value of 24, again this whole thing, it's just 24. Negative of -106, we have parentheses here, which mean we can combine those two, change to plus, so this will be equal to +106. And then we have negative of absolute value of -81. So the negative sign, that is absolute value, goes up front. This is the first thing, and then absolute value of -81 is equal to just number 81. So for this particular example, we got negative 81. Then we're asked to order that numbers from least to greatest. So I will begin with the small number, which in this case is negative 81. Then I will write down negative 34. After this one, I will put 16, positive 24, and positive 106. In this case, we have all those numbers ordered from least to greatest. Okay, so now example 3 is completed. We have one more example and the video will end. The last one is match the integer expression with the verbal expression. Sometimes when we read examples or word problems, for example, the reason we have difficulty is because we probably don't understand the verbal expression or what exactly it says. So let's go ahead and match those and see which one corresponds to which one. So, for example, A has the opposite of negative 5. What is the opposite of negative number? Well, the opposite of negative number is a positive number, right? So now, look at those examples and think about what they are equal to. Let's simplify then and see which one we can match with that. So negative of absolute value of 5 is again negative. Copy the sign and absolute value of 5 is just 5. So this is equal to negative 5. But on the other hand, the absolute value of negative 5 is always just a number with no sign. There is no negative sign outside, so just positive 5. Negative of absolute value of negative 5. Well, we have another negative sign outside of the absolute value. This whole thing is number 5, so the answer here is also negative 5. When we have negative of negative 5, there is no absolute value symbol here, so those two change to plus and we have just number 5. And final one, absolute value of 5 is equal to positive 5. So what we're going to do, we will match those answers with one that we like to use. The opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. So you can definitely try and connect those, maybe those two together. Let's do that. The absolute value of 5. So which one of those is absolute value of 5? Well, the absolute value of 5 is also this one. The opposite of absolute value of negative 5. The opposite of absolute value of negative 5. Well, absolute value of negative 5 is positive 5 answer, so the opposite will be negative 5. And you can pick either one. The absolute value of negative 5. Absolute value of negative 5, right here. We have another example of that. Absolute value of negative 5. And the opposite of the absolute value of 5. The opposite of the absolute value of 5, that will be this one. And it looks like we already matched those. So with that, we will conclude the video. I would say keep the questions for me and we'll discuss them during class time. Thank you for watching the video. Have a great day.